Hello everyone. We are back with our next tutorial, which will be on sampling. We will be studying sampling today. Sampling is one of the again, it's one of the most important things that you do in the research. If you choose a wrong sample, your entire research can go wrong. So what is a sample? A sample is basically a selected group of people that are going to participate in your study, that are going to fill up your questionnaire, that are going to give you interviews. These are the participants who will volunteer to take part in your study. You cannot force them. You will request them. They're going to agree, and they're going to be part of your study. And then you need to maintain their anonymity and confidentiality. That means you don't tell their name to anyone, you quote them, and then you keep their information confidential. You don't tell anyone what they have told you, but you just write a summarized form in the research paper. You don't identify them directly in the paper. Then obviously, if you talk about the sampling, you need to, whenever you are finding the subjects or your participants, you need to make sure that they are similar in their behavior. They are facing that particular problem. If you choose a sample which cannot identify in themselves with the problem, then obviously they will not be able to give you the correct data. So there is a proper procedure that you need to follow before you opt for a certain sample. There are some key elements that you need to understand when you are studying sampling. The first key word that you need to understand is population. Population means every single person who is going through that particular problem. I mean, for example, if you are conducting a research on the impact of training on the em- performance of the employees, then every employee who has ever been in the training can be part of your population, because everyone have gone through the same thing, and from this population we are going to choose our sample. Now we have two types of population: target population and accessible population. In the target population, it means the entire people, every single person. For example, if I'm conducting a research in Pakistan, that the impact of training on the employee performance in the banks of Pakistan. So in entire Pakistan, whichever bank conducted a training, the employees become the target population. But obviously we cannot go to the whole of Pakistan and collect data from there. But so we are going to see which population is accessible to us, which where we can easily go. So we can see that we live in Karachi. So in Karachi, all of the banks usually have their head offices in Karachi. So we can choose them, and then we can generalize it over there to the entire Pakistan, because the head office is there and they'll be working over here. So they become our accessible population. So from our accessible population, the people we have access to, from them we are going to choose our sample. Now, obviously, we need to choose a sample which can be journalized. I often give an example of when you go and give your blood test. See, when you want to check your blood sugar level, you don't give your entire blood to the lab. You only give a very small sample. That sample generalizes the result for your entire blood in your body. But you need to make sure that your body is not exposed to any foreign particle. For example, if I go and give my blood test to check my sugar level, and then I eat a lot of sweets, so right now my blood sugar level will be very high, but the results will be very low, because now I have some external thing affected to me. So whenever we are taking a sample, the sample can be generalized to the entire population until unless the entire population has not been exposed to any external thing. Now, what population, what when we are going for a target population, we need to have a proper inclusion and exclusion criteria. We need to make sure that what are the inclusion criteria, what are the criteria that those people should have for us to include them in our target population. For example, they should be working in a bank. For example, they should be working there for at least 5 years. This can be there, or we can say that they would have, they must have attended at least one training. They must know what has been after the training. They must have at least applied what they have done. I mean, something like that. But then you also need an exclusion criteria. For example, people who have recently switched from another bank and they had a training over there as well, we will exclude them because they will jeopardize our result. We can even say that people who have had multiple trainings, maybe we can exclude them, because we are only if we are only seeing that what a single training is doing, or if we are conducting a research on what the multiple training has impacted, then we will see that a person who has only participated in one training will go in our exclusion criteria. So inclusion criteria means the characteristics that people have for us to include them. Exclusion criteria means that people who have these things will not be included in our research. Then every member of the population comes into our sampling frame. Sampling frame, in a very easy word, is like a list that you make on a piece of paper in which you write all of the accessible population, all of your accessible population that comes in your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Okay, anyone who is fulfilling the criteria and it is accessible to you, the accessible population, you list them down on a piece of paper for you to choose your sample from. Now, how will you choose it? You need a sampling plan to choose it. That sampling plan is basically of two types, mainly of two types: probability sampling plans and non-probability sampling techniques. Now, probability sampling plans usually are used in quantitative research. Okay, now it is based on the fact that every person has an equal chance of being part of the study. It's a probability thing. Like this, anyone can be a part of it. Everyone have an equal chance. And then there are different techniques. For example, we have simple random sampling, we have stratified random sampling, systematic, cluster, and multi-stage. In multi-stage, we use multiple things. I mean, there are different ways how you can do it. For example, you can say every third member, or maybe you can say, maybe a random number, and you can just pick and choose randomly. So everyone will have an equal chance. Usually we use this in quantitative usually, but in qualitative research we mostly use non-probability sampling. In non-probability sampling, not everyone has an equal chance of being part of your study. In non-probability sampling, you need to pick and choose the people who will be part of your study. You need to make a conscious effort. You need to be very sure about who you are conducting the collecting the data from. So in non-probability sampling, there are three main types of non-probability sampling that you may choose from: purposive, network or snowball, or theoretical. Purposive is totally based on your judgment, on your thing, on what you are thinking, on your own decision, that you know that these are the people in the bank and these are the people who have been through the training, and then on your judgment you see, okay, this person will be best suited for my research, so you need to include them. And then obviously you need to make sure that that person is comfortable to talking to you, as we studied in the tools chapter, that you need to understand that they are comfortable to you, that they confide in you, and then you can ask them to be part of your study. But sometimes we don't know the people at all. Sometimes you don't know who to collect the data from. So in that scenario, we can choose an informant. That means we can use the HR department head, or maybe the director of operations to help us choose. If we are taking help from them, we may be using network or snowball sampling. That means we take advantage of our social network. For example, I know only one person in the bank, so I go to him and I ask him for the interview. He gives me an interview, and then I ask him if he knows anybody else who is the best fit to be part of my study. Then he points me towards the other person. The other person points me to another person. So we make a network of from this, and there we collect the data. The third, the type of non-probability sampling that you may use is a theoretical sampling. Theoretical sampling is mainly used in grounded theory research. In theoretical sampling, you collect the data until or unless any new data stops coming. That means that you reach the data saturation state. You collect data from each and every person who has been part of that training, who has been part of that entire program, so that you have all the data that you need, and you reach the data saturation state. That means you the data has fulfilled your expectation and there is no new data coming up. So now you can easily make up a theory, now you can easily make up a process, because there are no missing elements. So these are the main three sampling techniques that you may use in the non these are the three main techniques that may use in the non probability sampling, which we usually use in our qualitative research. Now if you have any further questions regarding sampling, you may ask, you may You may ask a question below this video. And if you are worried about what should be the sample size, usually the sample size is very small. Usually the sample size is very small in our research. In qualitative research, we don't have a lot of data, because as we studied in the qualitative data chapter, that if there is many, if you collect data from many people, you might be not be able to analyze that much. But that is not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes, mostly if we are doing a phenomenological research, our sample is about 8 to 10 people. In narrative research, we only have one sample. In If we talk about grounded theory, obviously it is as long as you're not getting the data saturation state. In the LMS, in the learning management system, I have uploaded 2 articles related to sampling. If you study that, you will have a much clearer idea about what type of research requires how many number of sampling. Now, if you have any further questions, you may you may write below the question, below the video, and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.